Okay, let's call to order the City of Milton Common Council meeting Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 at 6:02 p.m. And can I get confirmation of appropriate meeting notice?
You can do it.
The meeting was posted at Dave's Ace Hardware, Piggly Wiggly, and Milton City Hall.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We have an agenda. All right, the Pledge of Allegiance that Jerry's going to lead us in.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I have been informed we have a scout here, a Boy Scout. Is that accurate? Welcome to the City of Milton Council meeting.
This is going to be the best night of your life.
If you get tired and you have to go home and do homework, we understand if you need to leave early.
You're also welcome to move forward if you want to instead of
Okay.
You sit up here if you want. I'll swap with you.
Or sit next to Chief.
This is why nobody comes to our meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 4, mayoral proclamation declaring 2020 as the year of the community. So I've been thinking about this for a long time, for many months, and talking about these ideas that are in the proclamation, and I couldn't think of a better way to kind of talk about this in a way that really focuses the public on these ideals. So I thought, well, I'll just write a proclamation. So here we go. Welcome to 2020. Whereas the City of Milton has been a community since 1838, and whereas the community has historically demonstrated courage and perseverance in the pursuit of creating conditions that promote diversity, equity, inclusivity, and belonging through actions taken by our founders' participation in the Underground Railroad and the abolitionist movement. And whereas by embracing differences as strengths, we can magnify our capacity to achieve shared goals and enrich our experiences. And whereas encouraging a variety of ideas, rigorous discussion, and action can bring about positive growth and change. And whereas we strive to learn from the perspectives and experiences of others, as well as our past mistakes. And whereas the strength and resiliency of a community is built upon the strength and resiliency of the people that comprise it and their ability to move forward and embrace the future. And whereas by rejecting divisiveness, negativity, racism, inequality, and hateful words and actions, we can strive towards increasing our capacity to empathize, build trust, and have a deeper understanding of each other. And whereas a renewed focus and commitment to creating successful partnerships, making new connections, meeting our neighbors, supporting local nonprofits and civic organizations, participating in local city and school events, and patronizing our hometown businesses will forge strong community ties. Now, therefore, I, Anissa Welch, Mayor of the City of Milton, proclaim 2020 the year of the community in the City of Milton. Further, let it be proclaimed and known far and wide that the citizens of Milton and greater Milton community will be intentional in recognizing and promoting positive actions and activities that demonstrate living the Milton way, enjoying the city staff and council in embracing and acting upon the declaration of making 2020 the year of the community in the city of Milton. And I'll sign this the 21st day of January 2020. And for more excitement and the same thread, we are going to have a presentation by the city administrator reviewing 2019 and our successes and accomplishments.
That is a nice segue. We're talking about 2020 being the year of the community, and 2019 was a great year, and hopefully 2020 is a better year, and all signs point to it that it will be. So it is a good segue into it, and I hope folks can, if folks want to follow along on the one that I put online, it's the same. But for our large audience out there, you can take a look at the screen. There's a lot of words on it, but we'll try to hit the highlights, even though it's all highlights. It's like highlights of the highlights. So a couple things just from 2019. These are just some key points, overarching points. The city of Milton was the fastest growing community in Rock County in 2019 and had the lowest mill rate of any city in Rock County for budget year 2019. So we saw unprecedented growth while still maintaining the budget year tax rate as the lowest in the county. So both those things are outstanding positives for our community. The city of Milton saw an increase of over $31 million just in 1 year. $31 in increased equalized value in just 1 year. We've seen an increase of over $74.6 million, or 21% increase in the last 3 years. So when you say, how are we the fastest growing community in Rock County? That's how. And that is what contributes to that. We'll talk a little bit during the economic development section. But the nice thing is it's all sectors of our community. It's residential, it's industrial, it's commercial growth, it's organic growth, it's value growth, it's new construction, it's new buildings. It's all sectors that you would look for a healthy economy. Milton is really outpacing all of our neighbors. Here's where becomes a lot of words, so I'll ask the individual department heads who kind of help put these together to kind of jump in. We won't necessarily have to go over each bullet point, but from the police department, obviously another busy year, but in a good way. When you say busy year in a police department, sometimes that can have a negative connotation. But outside of just the general day-to-day work, the folks behind the scenes were doing a lot of additional work. And Scott, are there some highlights that you want to maybe talk about on your list there?
I had to bring it up on the computer because
I know.
So
Hey, you created it.
I know. You made it smaller.
This is true.
Yeah. So
You're gonna have to do less next year.
to try to make bigger font.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
So last year was kind of a pretty good rebuilding year for us. It was the first year in a long time where we were, and you guys keep harassing me for this, but we were at full staff for an entire year. We had all of our promotions that I put into place were secure for a year. We started bringing some of our newer officers like Heather Peck and Andy Reese kind of up to speed on some of our extra things that we like to do. Heather attended our CIT training, the crisis intervention training this year, which I think brings us up to at least 6 officers who have gone through that. I've talked a lot about Shop with a Cop leading up to that last year, and that was awesome. One of the things that as a management team we've been really working on is trying to make sure the officers are staying busy during their day. We don't have enforcement targets or anything like that, but we want them doing things. And one of the things that was our goals last year was try to reduce traffic accidents because we were starting to see a spike in that. And one of the best ways a police officer on an individual level can influence traffic crashes is by doing traffic enforcement. The more we're out there being seen, the stops that we make and things like that. So we did have some success with that and push that up a little bit last year. And I see that as a goal that was partway met. I set a 10% goal and they got halfway there, and we're going to make up the other half this year. once again this year saw a total call increase of about 10%, which is pretty typical for us. We've been seeing this kind of steady increase. When you take things out like security checks and code enforcement, some of those bigger numbers in our report, it moderates that number a little bit, but it's still, I think it was still around 5 or 6% increase in just our normal calls for the year. I'm working on that annual report now. Hopefully that'll be out in the next month or so. Lots of public engagement, which I love. I am becoming a pretty passionate and constant member of the Rock County Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, and look forward to a lot more of that. We're starting to regionalize the task force a little bit so that we can have point people in certain areas, and I volunteered to be the point person for the Milton area, so you'll be hearing a lot more from me on that. Hopefully that means more presentations and more resources we can bring to bear just within our community. Active shooter response I'll talk about later in my update. I think that's good.
And you know, Scott touched on a couple of key points from a citywide standpoint. It's certainly something that we've talked about at this level on a number of occasions. You know, a lot of times you hear you hear anecdotal information about, well, you know, they're increasing tickets because they want to raise revenue. Well, that is a factual inaccuracy. It doesn't actually work that way. Just because you issue a ticket doesn't mean revenues go up. And Scott is the chief is a firm believer, and I agree with his stance, and I know the mayor does as well, of community policing. Community policing doesn't mean issuing tickets; it means being seen. And sometimes tickets can lead to corrective behaviors, but really what you want to see is the corrective behaviors getting played out in reality. Decreasing accidents is the goal. The goal is not to catch speeders. The goal is to create a more safe community. And when that's the goal in mind, then that's how you find those outcomes. And the chief's done a wonderful job of that and continues to kind of move the department in that direction. Everybody knows Rosendale, you know. That's not who we are. That's not who we want to be. And I believe most communities probably feel the same way. Nothing against Rosendale. But, you know, that's not how it works in reality. And
I honestly have no idea what our revenue was last year,
Right.
based upon tickets. It's not something I look at. Are you making stops and telling people, hey, did you know you had a brake light out? Or, you know, that speed zone back there, you're going a little too fast, I'm not going to write you a ticket today, but you need to slow it down, and here's why. That's what I'm looking for. Now, if you make that stop and somebody happens to have a suspended driver's license, we're going to issue that ticket, because that's what we do. The goal is not tickets. It never has been for me, and thanks for pointing that out.
And but along with that, you know, the total calls for service, and this is an area that we've talked about here. We just talked about $31 million worth of growth. We're going to talk about the 32 new homes that started. We're going to talk about the 108 apartment units that are coming. The growth that we're seeing in the community, with growth comes additional calls for service, and that's something that I know the chief is monitoring very closely, and we've talked about here at the council level. And you know, I talk about it a lot. You know, the tipping point of things. Tipping point of things is somewhat subjective, but at some point, adding an additional officer will likely be the case, especially if we continue to see the kind of growth we are. And that's a challenge from a budget standpoint. It's a challenge from a levy limit standpoint, but it's something that, you know, I think the community hopefully understands and recognizes the necessity of that when that day comes. Some may argue that day has already come. Some days I think your staff believes that. And so it's really going to come down to a conversation as to how we get there and what that day looks like. Next group, Milton Public Library. Last year they won the Public Library of the Year. What'd you do this year?
Well, this year we were very busy. We actually increased the circulation of physical materials, so books and DVDs, by 9% from last year. So we had over 100,000 checkouts. We increased circulation of electronic materials, so we have Hoopla and Overdrive, where you can download ebooks and audiobooks for free. So that increased 22% from last year. And we also increased library visits, so we saw a 6% increase from last year of people coming into the library. So we were very busy. We had over 500 programs with 12,876 program participants. We started a podcast, and we introduced we're always looking for different ways to bring people into the library for checking out materials. So we have some kits. Al was very surprised that we were checking out ukuleles.
Yes. Yes.
So we have ukuleles and like bongos and stuff like that, but we have Emmy's Early Lit kits that are in honor of a little girl who passed away. And we have sitter sacks that a Girl Scout fundraised and put together for us. So we have some unique things that you can check out at the library. We have more that will be coming this year as well. We updated all of our library policies. They haven't been touched in about 5 years. So those are all updated. And with the help of the police chief, we have an occupant emergency plan for situations if they arise. And then we had several successful fundraisers. With our food truck rallies, we did Culver's Night, Noodles, our Neat Seats. So we kept busy.
And a couple of, maybe a month or so ago, you had a post that talked about how much money your visitors have saved by utilizing the library.
Yeah.
And what was that number? It was like, I don't want to,
1.3 million.
it was in the millions.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Dan? No.
So that's how much.
Did you?
I can look it up on our Facebook.
Yeah. And I know, Bill does a great job of, in his social media world of talking about how the concept of libraries once, not so long ago, it felt like those were maybe a thing of the past, and clearly our library is a testament that they are not. We have adapted our library to become a source of community gathering, a source of community knowledge, and it's more than just books. They have ukuleles. And chess, yes. So thank you. Anything else, Ashley?
I have the number here. It's loading. About $2.1 million.
I thought it was in the two, yeah.
Yeah, and Bill broke it down to how much that was per resident, didn't you? I believe.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah.
The state calculates a service area. State calculates a service area, and it's not a truly accurate kind of a thing. What they do is they take the city population and they add to it a percentage of population based on the usage of the libraries. And our service population is about 10,000 people. So, when you add Town of Harmony and Town of Milton and so on. So 10,000 is a real easy one to divide into all kinds of things.
Mhm.
When you look at almost 100,000 visits, and you break it down into 100,000 visits and 10,000 people, that's 10 visits for every man, woman, and child in the Milton area. Now, in fact, Ethel does more than her fair share of visits, and I get my fair share of visits in there. So there are some people that don't darken the library door, but that's a tremendous number. And our circulation number, when you look at the circulation number, it's about 10 items per capita. That's a lot of materials. That's not happening everywhere.
Mhm.
There are a lot of libraries that are seeing their use of traditional materials going down. One of the great things about those numbers, about half of the circulations are to kids. So that's speaking to the kinds of things that Nisa had in her proclamation, and in terms of building community. That's tomorrow's community, and our young man who's out here who is part of the scouting program is part of that building community for tomorrow, which is great as well.
I just want to add that I pumped in the math, and that you basically are saving people about $22 per visit.
Wow. And one of the things too, not to kind of dwell on this, but there was a 9% increase from last year. So the effect of, it's a new library and people are just checking it out, that's probably gone. We're seeing organic growth beyond that now. Not people just coming in to take a look at it. Repeat folks who are coming in, people coming in from outside of our area. 12,876 program participants, again, using Bill's numbers of 10,000 service area, means obviously those aren't unique users, but I mean, that is impressive, especially when you consider the population of Milton is 5,600. I mean, that's there's a lot of folks are coming through that facility, and it is a incredible asset. All right, follow that up, Howie.
What would you like to hear?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's coming up next month. Everybody likes, that part.
Go through that quarter of, the dirty discussions.
It's nothing like dirty movies, right? Anyway, last year we did with a lot of construction. Front Street, Windsor Court. It should be, hopefully done by Memorial Day. All the, the second surface and everything, those will be done. So it's kind of a 2-year project. There was quite a bit of public input, and it for the most part went really well with everything on it. So the timing and everything. And then we started to resurface streets this year, going back to the seal coat program. So most of the people that had the seal coat, well, I haven't heard anybody say they didn't like it on the streets that it happened. They're actually happy with it. So that's worked, pretty well, and we're getting a lot more miles than just blacktopping out of that. So for the development, there's the lift station force main construction on Parkview Drive. That's future development that goes in with the apartments down at Parkview, and then eventually next year, like for 2020, hopefully the apartments are built and the residential starts down there on the far end, along with more residential up on Galen, hopefully. And that's a lot of plan commission stuff. The school district, they're gonna, actually they'll be building all 4 schools next year, by this time, and, the 2 elementary schools will probably be finished by then, so. Then we had to do other things, like we did the land exchanges with them and some other things that helped out both parties, so we didn't have to, spend a lot of money on that, and it just worked out well, working cooperatively with each other. The commercial inspections, which is actually, we switched from in-house to contract, and that actually has worked out pretty well. It's worked out real well as far as people are still getting their inspections all done on time, and it's not costing us any more money, but as you can see, the residential has gone up quite a bit. I mean, I think overall building made like 17 million last year through the permit process and stuff. So there's been a lot of, besides the houses, a lot of new houses, just a lot of remodeling and stuff going on too. So we have a city engineer hired, which was kind of a goal to get done last year, because that should, in the long run, it should eventually save money, for the city, and on just not paying out consulting fees all the time. The one fun thing, Water Tower Park got put in, even though it didn't get finished till December, it's in. So, and code enforcement is always it's an ongoing thing, and a lot of that is just working with people, a lot of it so they don't get fined. It takes a while, but sometimes it's just, there's some things we just have to send out. Like we're probably going to send out like over 50 snow letters tomorrow or the next day, and out of those we'll probably only actually have to shovel 3 of them. So it's just, they get the letters, and it's a little bit of patience on that stuff, and then they actually do a lot of them themselves. And it's still nice because you're still working with everybody. You get like nice things like the veterans group to donate a really nice pavilion, and that'll be finished by Memorial Day 2 next year, hopefully. So this year, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm 2019 yet, but no, that'll be finished by this spring. So, and otherwise, like for next year, there's just things coming up like Badger disposal and some of those other things going on. So, oh, and we did have one more of the guys got certified in water and wastewater, so that helps quite a bit.
So one of the things that's always amazes me with the Public Works Department, we talked about $31 million worth of growth, talked about the fastest growing community in Rock County, talked about $71 million worth of growth over the last 3 years. I would think, based on those types of numbers and that type of exponential growth, you would see a lot of existing infrastructure and maintenance go by the wayside, because so much attention would be paid to the new development. But that is actually not the case at all. And we talked about 5.25 miles of streets were touched last year. We've done in the last, I think, since the pavement improvement program was instituted, I think we've done 16 miles of streets. It's or 16% of our streets. I'm sorry. They continue to do all the things that they previously did and more, and they're doing it with one less person than they did have in the budget 2 years ago. So I mean it's amazing. They are an efficient group. They're a group of conscientious people who have the city's best interest in mind and the bottom line in mind. And when we see the growth that we see and still maintaining the existing infrastructure, still maintaining our facilities, our facilities are fantastic. Doing the routine maintenance, keeping on top of those things aren't slipping through the cracks. And it's because of Howie and his diligence and understanding and kind of global view of the system, as well as the folks that are out there every day. This weekend, I think Lon was the first guy out for the snow event at, what time on Friday did he start? 5 p.m. Yep. Yeah. So in essence, and then we finished up around 11 o'clock. So you think about that. That's 18 straight hours. 18 straight hours that people were out there. And it was not a huge event, but it was sizable. But for 18 hours, somebody was out there and working on that. And it was a long snow event, and it was still snowing at 9 in the morning the next day. But and the streets are in great shape. So that's a testament again to the conscientiousness and the efficientness of how they go about their business. And we get new stuff like Water Tower Park. Next item, city finances. This is Dan's wheelhouse, but there are some big numbers on here that we were surprised at internally, and some of the things that we've talked about for years are now coming to fruition. Go ahead, Dan.
This is the really cool stuff. Really telling that 5 years ago we were at 82% of our credit limit, and now we are more or less at 50%. A 31% decrease in 5 years. A lot of that's because of growth. A lot of it's been a big chunk of it's been conscientious decisions by this governing body to not borrow. Because we saw what happens when you hit that proverbial wall. And we're, as I've said time and time again, we're 5 to 6 years away from having that number be really low if we continue doing the stuff we've been doing. Which is even more amazing because we've been doing all this stuff in the last several years without putting anything on the credit card, so to speak. Over $200,000 in interest income was generated. A 66% increase from 2018. Unfortunately, the rate environment is taking a turn the other way, so you won't see $200,000 next year, I can guarantee that. And then about $11,500 from the use of the credit cards that went into the Parks Fund. So that funds things that otherwise would have been either not done or done with tax dollars, which would have diverted other projects in our capital list each year. Like Water Tower Park.
Yeah. And those are the creative things that we continue to do in order to save money, but also provide additional resources. Again, that $11,592, that might not seem like a lot. But when we did Water Tower Park, that was, do you remember the total bill on that?
I don't.
I was going to say 22. So, I mean, you think about it.
I thought it was around like 15 or something.
It doesn't take long to add up, I guess, is my point. $11,000 may not seem like it goes very far, but so in 2 years, if we were to see similar amounts, 2 years, we could
Which we have.
redo another park. And there's no reason to see that number is going to deviate greatly one way or another.
And on the flip side, we've also gotten discounts from vendors by not utilizing the credit card that are greater than the rebate. So that's ultimately dollars on an annual basis that fall to the bottom line when we, every February, March, we bring forth, we kind of give you a year in review financial recap after the dust is kind of settled to indicate how much revenues have exceeded or the last several years it's been revenues exceeding the expenditures. And so like all of those little nickels and dimes, 0.5% here, percent there, filling out rebates, doing all that kind of stuff, all adds up at the end of the day.
And, the decision that the council made on December 30th, it's a small bullet point here, but, the very first bullet point, the city's debt service ratio decreased from 59.27 to 51.09. That means it decreased in 2019 from 59% to 51%. Had the council not made the decision that they did on December 30th, that number would only be 54. So that's kind of how that stuff translates to real life. That's 3.5 percentage points decrease, just based on one decision. So, those are, again, those have an impact on the tax rate, those have an impact on our finances, those have an impact on our ability to do things.
Future things. Most of the stuff that I'm looking at is looking ahead several years with one eye on the future and one eye on today. So
These are just some kind of interesting statistics. These are just, we process 26 city payrolls, 26 gathering place payrolls, and 26 fire department payrolls. Sometimes it's easy to forget we do the payrolls for the gathering place. We do the payrolls for the fire department. Process 9,000 cash, check, credit card transactions at the window, mail, or drop box. That's physically somebody came to the city hall and either handed us something or put it in the drop box, and then physically somebody entered it into the system. Process 3,000 credit card transactions. DPW process an additional 270 transactions. 14,000 utility bills were mailed out. Issued 15 special event permits. So those were events that took place in the city. Issued 120 park rentals. That means the parks are being heavily utilized. That means the investment that we're making into our parks is being realized by people who are then enjoying them. We did 8 We Are Milton podcasts, or Inca did 8. I think I did 5 of them. Facebook likes continue to increase. Instagram followers continue to increase, and that's kind of the way of the future. A lot of people get their information from Facebook, and those numbers continue to increase. 2,684. Again, if we're talking about 5,600 people in the city of Milton, that's a big percentage of people who are tied into us through Facebook. Now, granted, we know that some of those people live in Milton, Georgia, or Milton, Ontario. They haven't figured it out yet, but we'll take the likes. So, and every once in a while, that still comes up. It still comes up. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. We got that call about when are we going to plow the train station from Milton, Massachusetts. Milton, yeah. We plowed our train station months ago. Yeah.
Just as a joke, I have to say, the year that I was superintendent, I had received this call early in the morning, just screaming at me. They just having a fit. Why was I not canceling school? And I was saying, we don't have any snow. I just went out and measured it. We have over 18 inches of snow outside my door. And what she was calling from Massachusetts. And I could not get it through her. To her.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it comes up. It comes up more often than you would think. Yeah, the Milton, Ontario one is so strange because you have to dial a country code.
It's the country code for.
Is it for Canada?
Yeah,
Okay,
Mexico, too.
well,
You still have to dial it.
yeah, he's singing it out, 262.
It's just a one.
Yeah.
It's like, same for Mexico too. Mexico, US, and Canada use the same. I believe that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a few economic development statistics. We've kind of talked about a lot of these already. $31.3 million worth of new valuation in 2019, fastest growing community. Over $9 million in private, commercial, and industrial investment. 8.4 million in residential construction, including 32 new homes. That's up from 4.5 million last year. And nearly $1 million in renovations alone. And we had 16 new businesses start in the city of Milton in 2019. 16. So that includes the word portion of my presentation. Now, as everybody has kind of talked about how Inga is kind of a master of social media, she put together this cool little video. And last year I kind of interspersed pictures in it. This is much more exciting. It's not long. It's like 28, 29 minutes. So
Because of Teresa not wanting to go home.
It's gone so far. This is exactly how long it's gone so far.
Here we go.
I just want to point out that in that last picture, the two gentlemen that were sitting in rocking chairs are not city employees.
And now I know why I am so tired.
It is amazing when we put together this stuff, how much stuff you can actually accomplish in a year, and you forget. When we go through the pictures and look at the pictures, you think like, wow, I can't believe that was only 6 months ago. That was only 9 months ago. That was only 4 months ago. Because a lot happens in a year, it sounds cliche, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. But it honestly takes an entire group of people who are dedicated to do these things. It's not just Al, it's not just Anissa, it's not just Dan, it's not just Howie. It's an entire group of people, and we are beyond fortunate to have the group that we have. Very proud to do the things that we do, and it doesn't come without struggles and challenges, and sometimes you know, get that Facebook comment that doesn't feel good, but you know, when you watch something like that and you see all the stuff you did, it's really cool.
Nice.
Are you gonna put that little blurb on the city website?
Yes, you were the third person to ask me within the last 30 seconds.
And we expect everybody to like and share and tag and everything else that increases our interaction with the community.
I forgot. I apologize, Ryan. I actually still have 2 more slides. I wanted to talk about just some 2020 goals. Looking ahead to 2020, just a couple of goals that we put out there. Strategic plan at the Milton Public Library. Complete the Department of Public Instruction's Inclusive Services Assessment at Milton Public Library. On-site reaccreditation for our police department. Expand the countywide active shooter preparation to include fire and EMS. Integrate the city's first in-house engineer. Update the city's special event and alcohol ordinances, which we'll probably be talking about hopefully very soon, because there's some new events in Milton that we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Update the city's record retention policy. Review all city web pages and documents to assess accessibility. Create the 10-year capital improvement program. Once we have our engineer on board on March 2nd, that will be one of the very first things they work on. Create an economic development policy for the city, but continue to provide quality services to all citizens. Some of the challenges, again, debt service is always going to be a challenge for at least the next couple of years. Maintaining service levels with declining funding, even though we see an increase of $31.3 million in overall value, that equates to, I think it was this year, it was 62,000 in levy limits. So those numbers are not, necessarily always conducive from a logical standpoint. So we do see declining funding when we see things like health insurance going up, 8 to 16% on an annual basis. Balancing service delivery with priority versus incidents. It's one of the things that we always struggle with. We don't want to be reactive to a certain situation. We want to make sure that we prioritize accordingly. Sometimes I say just because we see something or hear something doesn't mean that it actually is a problem. That we want to make sure that we get all the information first before we go out and tackle it. Increasing tax base. We always want to increase the tax base, but we want to do it responsibly, and we want to maintain the Milton way of life. And the mayor has put together that proclamation that really epitomizes that, in my opinion, is doing the things that made Milton a great community for the last 200 plus years. Keep doing those things while striving to improve. So those are my last slides. Sorry. The video was... that should have just been the exclamation point. Any questions that folks have? Things that I missed or you want clarification on? Or well, thank you, everybody.
I just want to thank everybody that put together the year-end review. It's really kind of nice because, the fall we're putting together the budget, and that's a lot of hard work and discussion and running numbers and waiting for numbers. And it's kind of nice to have January come around and we get to look at, how all those efforts from really years preceding have come to fruition. And so I appreciate that. I love the video. I think it's great. So I think everybody should be proud of all of the accomplishments as a council that have taken place, and use that momentum going forward. Okay. Any public comments? No, seeing none. We will move to approve common council meeting minutes of January 7th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? That motion carries. Okay, item number 8, public hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve final resolution 2020-02, vacating portion of Parkview Drive and amending official city map.
So if you remember back on December 3rd, the council approved a preliminary resolution which vacates that portion of Parkview Drive that hasn't existed for some time, but we're We're made aware that the process, when the splash pad was built, this step of the process was missed or not completed. So we want to make sure we do that now so we can have an official city map. As we kind of joked at Plan Commission when we looked at this today, if we don't approve this, I don't think it means you get to drive on the splash pad, but, it's just kind of one of those things, so. The Plan Commission reviewed this earlier today, held a public hearing as well. There was no comments, and it was approved unanimously.
I move for final resolution 2020-02.
Well, just hang on. Just
Sorry.
take one step back. Yep. That's all.
Right, Al's right, there was a public hearing, that was on the amendment of the city map. It's there's two separate processes that are running at the same time, and so the mayor's correct that at this point, there will need to be a public hearing on the vacation aspect.
I just want everybody to recognize that I was correct. That doesn't happen.
We're not filming this. No, I'm just kidding. We are.
It doesn't happen very often, so I really just need to do a shout out to me. I will now open the public hearing. So if anybody from the public would like to make any comments regarding approving the final resolution to vacate a portion of Parkview Drive and amend the official city map, please do so now. Or now. Last call for now. All right, so seeing no comments regarding this issue, I will now close the public hearing.
I will move for approval of the final resolution 2020-02, which is vacating a portion of Parkview Drive and amending the city official map accordingly.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any questions, comments, discussion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action regarding CSM approval, conditional use permit approval, and site plan approval for Milton High School.
So this is really two items for the council action kind of combined into one, as we talked about at the Plan Commission level. In order for the high school in order for the school district to complete their expansion at the high school, they will need to combine the two lots that they've owned for a number of years. They have the large vacant land to the west of their facility. In order to construct the new addition, it would cross that lot line, which you're not able to do. So they needed to combine those two lots. And again, it's common ownership. They've owned those two lots for a long time. It's always been intended for school use. So it's really just kind of a logical step in the process to have this CSM combining those two lots. So that's the first piece, and we would like separate action on that. The next item is simply the conditional use permit approval process, which includes the site plan for the high school. Similar to what we did at Milton East Elementary, Milton West Elementary, and the middle school, institutional uses such as schools are conditional use within residential zone districts. So anytime a conditional use, a building or a facility that receives a conditional use permit expands, they're required to have a new conditional use permit. So at some point back in the history of Milton, those facilities were issued a conditional use permit. When expansions maybe occurred, probably at the high school, they were reissued, and we need to do that again, is reissue a new conditional use permit for the high school as part of their expansion process. The site plan has been included in your packet. The site plan doesn't need to be approved by the council. It's been approved by the Plan Commission, but it is an aspect of the conditional use permit process to see that site plan and understand kind of what's happening there. We had some folks in the audience during Plan Commission, but I think they were all there for the bakery. So we held a public hearing at the Plan Commission meeting, and there was no comments on it, and the Plan Commission approved the CSM, the conditional use permit, and the site plan at their meeting. And what we would be asking the council to do is approve the CSM and the conditional use permit via separate action if possible.
The conditional use permit with the contingencies?
Yes. Did I miss anything, Howie?
The CUP got approved with that they had to do the contingencies.
Yes, yeah, Inga mentioned that to me,
Yes,
yeah.
that was all, yeah.
So this does not require a public hearing at the council level, but if there are questions the council has for either the CSM or the CUP,
I think it might be for the community to know that the result of all the work there will adjust the stop signs at the corners so that people will realize they need to stop and where they need to stop. So, yeah.
So what Larry is talking about is at the high school, where there's that kind of,
At Rainbow and High Street.
yes, that large intersection that can be problematic at times, will narrowed up and kind of like a normal intersection now, as far as I can tell.
Right. Yeah.
That's the intention.
it won't eliminate the stop signs. So if Maxine was here, she'd probably be sad. But it'll make that intersection a much more traditional intersection. Right now, if you're traveling eastbound on High Street, you stop at an area, if you're not familiar with the community, you stop like in front of somebody's house, and you wouldn't understand why you're stopping. That will fix this new, one of the changes they'll make at the high school will fix that issue.
I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit and site plan approval for the Milton High School.
Can we approve the CSM first?
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the CSM for Milton High School.
Second.
You got that second? Okay. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, the CSM is approved, so then we need an additional motion regarding the conditional use permit that includes the contingencies.
I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use and site plan approval with the contingencies for the Milton High School.
Any further comment or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, moving right along. That motion carries. Number 10, discussion and possible action on resolution 2020-01, accepting a water main dedication and maintenance agreement from the Milton School District on the Milton Middle School property.
So as part of the middle school expansion, they will be extending a new public water main along the west edge of their property that will terminate in a new public fire hydrant towards the back of their facility in order to for additional fire protection. That will be a public main. Although it is not constructed at this time, we do have the maintenance agreement with the Milton School District. And Mark may need to help me out on this. If the council can accept the dedication once it's been constructed, or do we need to bring the acceptance back once it's been constructed? Could it be like a contingency to accept once?
I would recommend it come back once
Okay.
it's constructed, because the city engineer is gonna first need to inspect it to make sure that it meets the
Yeah.
required.
So we would be approving
Yes.
the maintenance agreement though, correct?
Yes, that, I'm not, don't know whether that's been approved by the.
It goes on the 27th.
Excuse me, so it can be approved if the council wishes, contingent on the approval by the school board, that's fine.
So, if I understand correctly, we're not accepting the water main dedication, we're just approving the maintenance agreement in the motion?
Correct.
Correct. So the motion could be, motion to approve the maintenance agreement between the city of Milton and Milton School District on the Milton Middle School property. Pending, contingent upon the school district's approval.
I'll make that motion as stated by the administrator.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? Any comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion carries. Discussion and possible action regarding utility division job descriptions updates.
Go ahead.
So the city of Milton, we periodically review our job descriptions and try and make updates on a regular basis, especially if there's been any kind of turnover or changes in the positions. And we decided to focus on the utility job descriptions to check those because we did add in the assistant utility operator, and we wanted to make sure that those job descriptions were up to date. So included with the packet are the job descriptions for the waterworks operator, the wastewater operator, the assistant waterworks operator, the assistant wastewater operator, and the assistant utility operator who works between the two utilities. I don't know if there are any questions on them or anything.
So again, this is something that Inga does from when she's wearing her HR hat. Last year we did all the city hall ones. This year we've started off with the utility ones. When she indicated that we added a position, that was a position that was actually added in 2000 and early 2019, or when did Justin move into that spot? Was it late 18? Yeah. Right. So we kind of changed Justin's job. Yeah. So we want that's reflected. So it's not a new position.
And that wasn't, it wasn't necessarily adding a new position, it was replacing a general laborer with this
Yes.
assistant utility operator.
Right.
Because the utility needed some more help. Yeah, just a little restructure there.
And I probably know the answer to this, but I just double check. These were worked in coordination with the people in those positions as well, right?
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
We can just do them all together. I would do motion to approve the job descriptions for the utility division as presented.
I think that would be acceptable.
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions about these or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Discussion and possible action on non-DOT regulated employee and DOT regulated employee alcohol misuse prevention and anti-drug policies.
So I also try and look at our policies on a regular basis. One thing that CIVMIC, Cities and Villages Mutual Insurance Company, they're our liability insurance company, they recommended splitting our policy because right now it's covers non-DOT regulated employees and DOT regulated employees combined, and they recommended splitting those. So what I did was take their model policies that they have available and went through those and created these that you have here. We also had to add in language related to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. It's a new federal database for CDL drivers and their drug and alcohol violations. So we had to add in language about that as well. One note on the non-DOT policy, the very first line in the title, I left off non, so I'll add that in if you look at it. It's a key word there.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve non-DOT and DOT employee alcohol prevention and anti-drug policies as presented.
Second.
So, did you want misuse in there?
I was trying not to do them all word for
Oh,
word, but
okay.
yes, is that the only word I left out?
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
just to note, I will make that just minor modification in that title.
Okay.
Is there a second? I didn't. Okay. And Linda, did you have a comment?
I just had a question. This clearinghouse, this federal database, how long has that been in effect?
Since January 6th of this year.
15 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything else for anyone? All those in favor?
I
All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Discussion and action to authorize the appointment of an additional election official for the January 2020 through December 2021 election cycle.
So on December 3rd of last year, the Common Council appointed a list of election officials to run for this next election cycle, which is January 20th to January of 2020 to December 2021. Leanne Schrader, our city clerk, was contacted by an additional individual who wanted to serve in that capacity as well. So Leanne has asked that the council approve Rhonda Mitchell as an election official for the election cycle. We can always use more people, and I think most of us know Rhonda.
I would move approval of authorizing the appointment of the additional election official.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Discussion and action to approve new operator licenses.
So again, City Clerk Leanne Schrader has presented a list of new operators. That list is shown on the memo that she's prepared. Those individuals have all gone through the background check from the municipal court clerk, Milton Police Department, and city clerk, and therefore staff is recommending approval of the new operator licenses to be issued between October of last year and January of this year.
I'll make a motion to approve the new operator license.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comment, questions, discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion carries. Discussion and possible action to deny an operator license for Nicole M. Randall.
So where we approved those previous operators, this is one who applied that they are recommending denial of. This came about, as you can see, in the memo through the background investigation. Ms. Randall was informed that she could attend tonight's meeting if she wished to provide any additional information, and I assume she's not present. So, staff is recommending the council deny the request for an operator license for Nicole M. Randall.
I'll make a motion to deny the request.
Second.
Operator license.
And just to note that for the clerk, because if there's a denial, then the clerk needs to notify the applicant in writing of the denial and the reason for that. So if I'm understanding it correctly, is the basis for the motion of denial, it's based upon the background investigation as related by staff and the recommendation of staff?
Yes, as well as the non-disclosure of,
Okay,
because I think that's one of the things mentioned here is the non-disclosure is part of the disqualifying
all right,
factor.
thank you.
There was a second.
Yes, second.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. General items.
I just had comment for our committee from the Fire Commission. And just to make sure that all of you saw the announcement from the, if you saw it in the paper or on the Facebook about the starting of the AVL, automatic vehicle locator technology. If you haven't seen it, try to look up on Facebook about it or check the Janesville Gazette. Okay, really. It's a wonderful tool that will be, well, already is implemented. So I won't go through great detail now and waste your time, but it really is a neat tool, so.
Any other general items? No. Committee reports.
Fire Commission meeting tomorrow night,
Where, time and place?
7:00 here.
Any other committee reports?
Tourism Consortium is meeting the last week of the month, so I'll have a report next time.
Any other?
Just a quick report on the Complete Count Committee. We did meet again on January 15th. worked on just some other strategies. We're going to have a census day at the library on April 13th. So planning to have volunteers available from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. that day to try and help people complete the census online. So we'll have some laptops set up in the community room and maybe some other activities.
And will there be cards sent out to everyone?
Yes, so mid-March is when people should start watching for the invitation letter, they're calling it, from the United States Census Bureau to complete the census online. And that'll have the website and I think like a password or something like that to complete that census form online. And then they'll have some follow-up communications as well through the mail. And then eventually, if they still don't get responses, then they'll have someone go door to door starting in, I think, May.
I believe, Inga, it's right, April 1st is when they can start to fill out those forms?
Well, as soon as you get the invitation letter, I think you can go online and fill it out. April 1st is the official census day.
Any other committee reports? Wasn't there a meeting of a committee?
On the 13th?
Yeah.
So on the 13th, which was last week, we had Parks and Recreation Commission and Story Gardens, but everybody was sick. So we didn't have a quorum, so I don't really have anything to report back on, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that everyone's feeling better and we can have a more productive February.
Just like I thought I saw something. Okay. Staff reports. Chief, anything?
One of the things I mentioned on the earlier slide presentation was active shooter response, and a concept that we're now starting to move into is called a rescue task force. What a rescue task force is picture your traditional police officer looking response to an active shooter working through a hallway, but now we're adding EMS paramedics into that group to get to injured more quickly. So things may still be happening in the building, but we know it's relatively safe that we can bring medical professionals in. We call it stop the dying. The police department's role in an active shooter incident is to stop the killing. EMS fire's responsibility is to stop the dying. So getting them more quickly to those injured people is important. Between two events in December and one that just happened yesterday, we've now had 2 countywide trainings for that has integrated police and fire agencies from throughout the county in practicing these responses. One of the things that was turned over to me by our outgoing, our Rock County Law Enforcement Administrators Association president, retired in December, Dave Hooker, if you know Dave, and he turned over to me the leadership in that particular aspect, how we get RTF training more integrated throughout our agencies. Janesville's been doing that work already. Yesterday's event was spearheaded by the Sheriff's Department, and I can't be more proud of the effort that these trainers have put into putting this together. It was a phenomenal training. We were offered unasked by Blackhawk Technical College, hey, we don't have school on the 20th of January because it's a school holiday. You want to come in and do stuff. And they set up really a phenomenal training that I think people got an awful lot out of if they went through it. It's become kind of one of those unifying things. We get a little territorial in public safety where we sometimes get a little big in our head and think we're better than the other agencies are. This was truly collaborative, and it was amazing to see these agencies that sometimes don't always see eye to eye putting together this training and executing it in a way that I don't think we've ever seen here before. So this isn't done yet either. This wasn't a one-time thing. Through the planning of this event, again spearheaded by the Sheriff's Office, with trainers from Janesville Police Department, Beloit Police Department, Beloit Fire Department, and a few others, they have now established a standing committee where we're going to keep working on this a number of times a year and give more people an opportunity to practice it. I'm pretty excited about it. It's topic's a passion of mine, and you'll hear more about it as the year goes on.
Do you want to mention the Rock County Human Trafficking? I think they have a presentation tomorrow in Janesville.
Yes, I'm not able to be there at tomorrow's presentation, but I'm gonna have to find the location again, but in the city of Janesville, I think at one of the schools, the Rock County Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force is sponsoring a presentation. And this one's gonna be a little bit special because we have a survivor that's presenting. And this is a young lady who actually saw some of the task force Facebook posts and responded to one of the posts saying, I'm a survivor, and the task force reached out to her and she was willing to come and talk to us, and had a very impactful story that she is now willing to talk about publicly. She's done one other presentation to a group that we put together at UW Whitewater last year, and she's now doing the Janesville event tomorrow. So if this is a topic you want to hear more about, this isn't a woman speaking from a large urban community where you traditionally think of sex trafficking. She was from Monroe, and she was trafficked as young as 5 years old. And it's something that, again, we repeat over and over again. It's happening here, and we need to be aware of it and know what to look for. And she can really help drive that point home with some of her story. So I do encourage people to check that out if they can.
Where is it at?
Can I get a pause on that
It's-
and let you know in a second?
I just looked it up. It's
Awesome.
Franklin Middle School, and it starts at 5:30 and goes until 7.
Ashley? Thank you.
We just have our open house for the launch of our Friends of the Milton Public Library next Thursday at 5. So if you're interested in learning more about the Friends and what the different committees will have, definitely come and meet our executive board and learn more about that.
Howie?
Nothing out of the ordinary. No, I mean, not really. We do have to send out snow removal letters though tomorrow, so.
Hey, Dan, anything?
Nope.
Inga, do you have anything more?
I don't think so.
El?
Yeah, I have a brief.
You do a 2020 year in preview?
Yes.
So speaking of that, what did anybody see any movies this year? What are your favorite movies?
In 2019 or in 2020?
The nominations. Like,
Oh.
aren't there nominations? Isn't there?
Yeah, they came out.
Yeah. 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 I'm just interested because I feel like I haven't seen any movies. So, like, did you guys see any movies? Hear about it? Is there a movie you would like to see that is interesting? I'll just gotta expand this a little bit.
I saw the Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with the Tom Hanks movie about Mr. Rogers, and that was fantastic. Really a great movie for what we need in our society right now to remind us of what's really important. It was a really good movie.
I saw the Jumanji movie. That was a great movie. That was a great movie.
I only see the Marvel movies in the theaters, so the last one that came out and the next one that'll come out, I'll go see.
Mine was The Irishman.
Yes.
No, it really was terrific.
I caught the Star Wars movie, of course, to finish that saga, but did it in a recliner with a server bringing me food and drinks, and I just got to say we need this in this region. Because that's pretty cool. Yeah, Sun Prairie. No. She loves me, but she doesn't make that kind of Bloody Mary. Yeah. Really good.
Being a fan of the 40s, I watched Midway, and I really liked that. It was good, well done, I thought, considering my historic references and stuff. So.
Well, I seldom am able to get out to a movie theater, but actually did within the last month and saw the most recent version of Little Women. That was an excellent movie. The acting is great. The writing is great. I think it's probably underappreciated. It was really well done, and really, they brought a 1800s setting to the present. Basically, it was very good. Go for it, you did.
What one are you looking forward to seeing or streaming or?
Holding out for the next Pirates of the Caribbean movie. So,
I haven't seen any movies either. My kids went and saw Frozen with my wife, but that's it.
I'm interested in seeing the 1917 movie.
Yeah. I was supposed to see that.
The ones that I saw Irishman. I did it all in one sitting.
Oh, you did? Good. That's a long one.
Yeah, yep, I committed. It wasn't tough to sit on the couch for me. And I just did the red box version of Rocket Man, which the Elton John movie, which I hadn't seen, it's a musical, so that was really good.
I don't go out to movies really. I guess the last movie that I got to watch was Neverland, Peter Pan. And
Someone take this woman on a date to a movie, please.
it wasn't in a theater with my grandchildren.
Dan.
Couldn't tell you the last movie I saw in a theater or streamed.
So you and Linda.
Just not a movie person. Superstar. That was a train. Well, the second half was fine.
Audience. Favorite movie, guys? Oh, cool. Good. Good. Tourists.
It's from like their mid 2000s.
Yeah. No, I do remember.
Did we get everybody? We got everybody? Okay. All right. Next meeting, February 4th, 2020. I don't know who's bringing Valentine's Day treats, but don't forget to bring them.
Amanda Miller.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion. And I'll second it.
All those in favor? We are adjourned until February.